Hello, this is Little Green Ghouls, and today I'm counting up the 5 worst Goosebumps Series 2000 books. Because after working my way through 25 books, there are a few that need to be singled out and shamed. Although, I do have to say, I found the Series 2000 books to be collectively better than the original 62, and making this list was actually harder than I thought it would be. Series 2000 definitely had more hits than misses. Like I've said in the past, ranking anything is inherently subjective, so I'm just going to keep in mind the characteristics of what makes a Goosebumps book bad to me, which tended to be the sins of being boring, nonsensical, or having wasted potential. Remember, people, these are children's books after all, so let's not take this too seriously. Alright, let's hop to it with number 5, Bride of the Living Dummy. If you've followed my channel, you'll already know that I'm not a huge fan of Slappy, and will forever be confused that the Goosebumps brand grew to center around him. In Bride of the Living Dummy, Stein trots out the typical Living Dummy story beats, and the book just largely is going through the motions. We have a protagonist, Jillian Zinman, who spends her life being tormented by her awful younger twin sisters, Katie and Amanda. These rotten little twins have their own demented doll, Mary Ellen, who spends the book commanding the twins to harass Jillian, including attempting to cut off her hair as she sleeps. After attending a Slappy theater performance, Jillian's friend Harrison engages in some classic Goosebumps dumpster diving and retrieves Slappy himself after the ventriloquist Jimmy O. James tossed him out. Slappy wastes no time and bites Jillian on the hand, and later tries to blind a bunch of kids at a birthday party with some soap. This all leads to Jillian and Harrison breaking into Jimmy O. James's house and finding a diary where they learn Slappy was created by an evil sorcerer from Coffinwood. Slappy then spends some chapters writing "Where's My Bride" in various parts of the house. Eventually, Jillian, who I forgot to mention, her goal in life is to become a clown, hosts a birthday party in her basement for a bunch of little kids, and it goes okay at first, until rapidly all hell breaks loose. Slappy springs to life and spews green vomit all over the children. This causes little kids to start vomiting everywhere too. It's a book highlight for me. Shit then gets real weird when Slappy starts demanding his bride. Everyone assumes that at first he must mean Mary Ellen because she's also clearly an evil doll. But nope, Slappy wants to marry 12-year-old Jillian. So yeah, this one involves Slappy wanting a child bride, and it's real uncomfortable for everybody involved, especially the reader. We then get another twist and learn Mary Ellen has been alive this whole time, and she was the one who brought Slappy to life with the magic words. This all culminates in some dummy wrestling between the two dolls after Slappy insults Mary Ellen and rejects her love. Then Slappy and Mary Ellen end up getting sliced in half by a conveniently placed table saw. Now, all this sounds fairly exciting when it's condensed down to a couple of paragraphs, but all of the fun stuff happens in like 5 pages. Otherwise, the rest of the book is just typical Living Dummy shit to slog through. It's not done yet though, because in a final page twist for this one, Slappy's spirit possesses Jillian as she vomits green sludge all over the twins. In the end, Bride of the Living Dummy still has its moments, but it wasn't enough to place it in the better half of the Series 2000 books. Alright, up next is number 4, Earth Geeks Must Go. This was a later in the series book that just falls into the Stein genre of, here's a bunch of random nonsense bullshit, enjoy. It is a solid premise with Jacob Miller showing up to his first day of school, only to realize he has no memory of who he actually is or where he is. It quickly becomes apparent he's on some sort of alien Earth-like planet after he watches a cafeteria full of children stuff food into their armpits, because on this planet, everybody's armpits are equipped with toothy little holes to eat with. It feels like this book was written just for this scene. Jacob races out of school, where he encounters another actual human named Arlene, and they are both quickly attacked by alien bloodthirsty ticks known as splatters, who can only be defeated by whistling. The book peaks here, and quickly devolves into running around and making progressively dumb decisions, including multiple instances of forgetting they can't read the alien language for the sake of plot padding. At some point, Jacob and Arlene discover they're actually siblings after their father finds them hanging out in a random house. The Miller family all learn together that they're Earth geeks, and that the toothy armpit inhabitants of this planet are on a mission to capture them. Jacob and Arlene eventually blow their cover at school and are discovered to be Earth geeks. This leads to a short-lived chase where the father drives an alien car full speed into a brick wall, knocking out the entire family. This moment got an actual laugh out of me due to the abrupt violence of it all. The Miller family comes to in a jail cell and are interrogated by the mayor-governor, where they learn they're being accused of hiding a weapon of mass destruction. After continuing to deny these terrorist allegations, the family are subjected to some enhanced interrogation techniques. This involves being dangled upside down and lowered into a cauldron full of space ticks. The surprise here though is that these space ticks are actually telepathic, and it's revealed that they're a highly advanced species who brought the family from Earth, wiped their memories, and implanted a bomb in the dad's wristwatch to destroy the armpit people of this planet. None of this holds up to even the slightest amount of critical thought, and is supremely stupid. It all feels written on the fly. Jacob ends up destroying the splatters after telepathically learning that they plan to betray the Miller family. The Millers are then treated to a multi-day celebration of armpit champagne drinking for defeating the splatters. The Miller family eventually requests to head back to Earth and learn the armpit eaters actually don't have space travel technology, except, wait, yes they do. It's just in some guy's backyard, who is repeatedly referred to as Crazy Old Phil. The Millers all load into this backyard spacecraft and are rocketed back to Earth. However, in a final page twist, they're actually sent to a different Earth-like planet where the inhabitants look like humans but are actually purple lizard people. It's a hot mess of a book that once again still has its fun moments and ideas. It's just clear that very little thought went into making this an actual cohesive story, with zero attempt to make it even somewhat logical. It definitely falls into the wasted potential category. Okay, number 3 on the worst list goes to The Mummy Walks. Now, with a title like that, you'd imagine there's going to be some mummy walking around at some point in this story, but nope, there is zero mummy action in this book. Instead, it's more of an over-the-top action-adventure story centered around Michael Clark. He opens the book by learning his parents aren't his actual parents as he's flown off to the fictional country of Jezekiah in an empty airplane. It's kinda like he's been kidnapped. Once in Jezekiah, Michael learns he's actually royalty and is a prince whose parents snuck him out of the country while at war. His parents are now dead and he must fulfill a prophecy where he locates an ancient mummy of Emperor Pukra, whose body contains the Jezekiah sapphire, which is so valuable that the entire country's treasury is built around it. It's a whole lot to take in and some wild shit, but it feels distinctly not Goosebumps. Stein then adds a dash of his special nonsense, and Michael learns his parents implanted a chip into his brain that will lead him to the location of Emperor Pukra's body. What? The book then delves into endless pages of enemy warfare and interrogations as Michael tries to figure out if he truly is the Prince of Jezekiah, because he has zero inclination as to where this mummy is located, so he thinks they might have the wrong kid. Michael ends up being threatened with brain surgery to extract the chip when he's unable to come up with a mummy location, so he just sends everyone to a cave that's been chosen at random on the map. At this cave, we get more warfare, and his platonic best friend Megan dresses up as a mummy to scare everybody off. It's the closest to mummy action that we're gonna get in this story. Michael and Megan are kidnapped by rebels, and Michael is once again threatened with brain surgery to retrieve the brain implant, but once a preliminary x-ray reveals there's no chip in Michael's head, he instead is sent to a python pit to die. The story then just cuts off, and Megan's on the plane with Michael back to the US, and it's kinda like, yada yada yada, I talked us out of the python death. Once at home, Michael is thrilled to have returned to his parents, but they inform him he actually is the Prince of Jezekiah, and they had the brain implant removed from him as a baby. Oh yeah, and they have been hiding Emperor Pukra's mummified body in their basement. There is just so much random shit in this book that it ceases to be fun after a bit. The next morning, Megan is missing along with the mummy and Sapphire. They all find a note that says, "The mummy walks again." And that's it. This long, convoluted story doesn't even have the decency to show us the mummy walking around the house. I can acknowledge this book has some wild moments, and was a much bigger story than our usual Goosebumps books with secret princes and countries at war, but all of that means nothing to me if we can't manage to even work in a few attempted scares. Or, some mummy moments in a book framed around a frickin' mummy. Okay, number 2 on our worst of the series 2000 goes to Scream School. This book falls into the Goosebumps category of no real scares. Everything in this story ends up being some sort of prank or setup, and it just ends up falling flat. Stein has some fun exploring a contentious father-son relationship, but that's where the praise ends for me. This book is dull and a chore to get through. Jake is the son of a famous horror movie director, Emery Banyan, and spends his time feeling cowardly in his dad's shadow. There is a lot of time spent behind the scenes of a movie set, where Jake has multiple moments of failing to live up to his dad's expectations, and getting scared in front of the entire crew. Throughout the story, Jake tries his best to be brave, while his dad tries his hardest to get Jake to acknowledge that he does get scared. It's a nice message about not hiding your emotions, but it's treated throughout the story in a really backwards way. All this emotional drama eventually leads to a cruel prank at the hands of Jake's father, where Jake is terrorized by fake ghosts as part of a birthday surprise gone wrong. His dad logic is reduced to just wanting to see if Jake is as brave as he claims he is, and doesn't really make sense in the context of the other parts of the book. The story then moves to filming at an abandoned high school that's rumored to be haunted. It's here that a series of elaborate pranks are pulled courtesy of Jake and some local kids he meets while filming. These pranks include finding body parts in chili, set accidents, and creepy whispering in the hallways. This all culminates to a classroom scare scene where, while filming, Emery is horrified to discover the classroom is full of actual decaying ghoul children, with some solid Goosebumps gore. These pranks are presented in a very annoying way, where we read these events from Jake's point of view, and he's scared and trying to figure out what's going on, only to learn he's been behind the pranks the whole time, so it's like he's lying to himself for the sake of the reader. It's a cheap and obvious twist that gets hammered in one last time in the final pages of the story. Emery is reviewing the film footage from the classroom ghoul prank, now fully aware Jake set it all up, only to be tricked into thinking the actors really were ghouls this whole time. But no, once again, it just ends up being Jake who doctored the footage. This one ends up being an unpleasant mixture of boring, obvious, nonsensical, and cheap. It definitely earned its spot at number 2 on the worst list. Before we see the number 1 spot, let's throw out a couple of honorable mentions that didn't quite make the top 5 worst. These include Slappy's Nightmare and Return to Horrorland. Slappy's Nightmare came close because, once again, it's just another living dummy book with the added twist of mostly being from Slappy's perspective. That's not enough to justify its existence for me though. Return to Horrorland is okay, but mostly suffers from wasted potential. It was nice getting to revisit these characters. However, Stein went ahead and made them seemingly forget everything they learned the first time around, which leads to some frustrating moments and character choices. It just deserved better than it got. But our number 1 worst of the Series 2000 books easily goes to Revenge on Us. This book is a head scratcher for sure, and left me wondering what the fuck Stein was thinking as he wrote it. Revenge on Us tells the story of Wade, a likable protagonist who is constantly being terrorized by her older brother Micah, and not just in the typical annoying Goosebumps sibling way. Micah is cruel and gross in some really uncomfortable moments. These include Micah putting Wade's underwear on his head and dancing around the room in front of her crush, and then later he reads Wade's diary over a loudspeaker at the public pool. Wade lives in constant physical and emotional fear of her brother, so it's only natural that she wants some sort of revenge. Unfortunately for Wade, Stein proceeds to torture this poor girl at every opportunity. Wade ends up venturing into a trailer park to seek the services of Revenge on Us, a business she saw advertised in some random magazine. In this trailer, Wade encounters the witch Iris and her magical pet crow Maggie. Wade strokes Maggie and wishes for Micah to suffer from a severe itch that will never be satisfied. However, this predictably results in Wade herself suffering from a debilitating itch that makes her want to tear her own skin off. When she returns to Iris and Maggie for help, the spell is reversed, and Wade then wishes for all of Micah's hair to fall out. Once again, things go wrong and Wade ends up growing thick bristly hair all over her body until she's a literal koosh ball of hair and suffocating from the weight of all the hair on top of her. Wade once again returns to Iris and Maggie for help, who are able to reverse the spell. Throughout these spells gone wrong, Micah continues to terrorize Wade, and you're just left wanting Wade to make him suffer. This includes Micah creeping into her room at night, taking a picture of her sleeping in her underwear, and threatening to distribute the photo at school. Micah is a story villain who goes places a Goosebumps book doesn't need to go. On Wade's third attempt at revenge, she wishes for her problems to disappear, which results in Micah going missing. Hooray! Success at last! Unfortunately, Wade has a conscience and returns to Iris and Maggie to make her brother reappear. This time, Iris sends Wade on a mission to retrieve a crow named Minnie, who is even more powerful than Maggie, from Iris's twin sister Paula to make Micah reappear. It's convoluted, but don't worry, it doesn't matter much. Wade locates this other crow and finds Micah disguised as twin sister Paula, and we get a gut punch of a twist. Micah's been working with Iris this whole time. That's why every spell has backfired and Wade has been suffering throughout this book. It's some real bullshit. We then get teased with an almost happy ending as Wade manages to steal magical Maggie and perform some spells on Micah. This includes making him do backflips, turning him into a slug, and then turning him into a frog. Iris appears to snatch back her crow, and when Wade tries to perform a spell on Iris, she reveals you can only perform 4 spells in a day, or the spell will be turned onto the caster. So, Wade ends this book being turned into a frog. It's a very frustrating story, where we have Wade being abused by her creepy older brother, tortured in various ways as she attempts to get some sort of justice, and then, when things are looking hopeful for her, she ends the book being transformed into a frog, like she somehow deserved any of this. It's easily my least favorite story from Stein so far, and a pretty big outlier on an otherwise enjoyable series of books. Well, that's it for my 5 worst Series 2000 books. Let me know in the comments your worst Series 2000 rankings. Are there any you disagree with and actually enjoyed? Like last time, this list isn't meant to be that serious, and I still think the 25 Series 2000 books are stronger as a whole when compared to the original 62, which contained a lot more lows. Like, it was much harder for me to find books I didn't like this time around to complain about. So, be on the lookout for my best of the Series 2000 next week. Anyways, as always, thanks again for watching, and make sure you subscribe for
the pride, the love,